Some people don't hate the world. They don't fear people. They don't lack social skills. They simply don't crave constant interaction. While the world chases noise, validation, and movement, they choose stillness. Today, we're decoding the psychology of people who love solitude, those who prefer staying home, being alone, and living quietly in their inner world. This isn't loneliness. This isn't antisocial behavior. This is a different psychological wiring. In this video, we'll break down the 10 hidden facets of people who love solitude, from the way they think to how they process the world, to the subtle ways their minds operate unseen by most. By the end, you'll understand what drives their behavior, why they are often misunderstood, and how solitude can actually be a source of power. 1. Solitude versus loneliness, a critical distinction. Loneliness is painful. Solitude is intentional. Psychologically, the difference matters. Studies in social psychology show that loneliness is linked to anxiety, depression, and a perceived lack of connection. Solitude, when chosen, is linked to emotional regulation, clarity, and self-awareness. People who love solitude don't feel empty when they're alone. They feel complete. They aren't running away from others. They're returning to themselves. 2. The overstimulation mind. One of the strongest traits among solitude-loving individuals is high sensitivity to stimulation. Research by psychologist Elaine Aron on highly sensitive persons, or HSPs, shows that some brains process sensory input more deeply. Noise, crowds, small talk, unpredictability, all of it drains energy faster. For these individuals, social environments demand constant emotional monitoring, facial expressions, tone shifts, social expectations. Solitude becomes a form of neurological recovery. Staying home isn't laziness, it's regulation. 3. A rich inner world. Here's something most people don't understand. Some minds are louder inside than outside. Psychological studies on introversion and internal cognition show that solitude-oriented individuals often have strong imagination, deep self-reflection, high metacognitive awareness. Silence doesn't bore them, it feeds them. There is actual data to support this connection between solitude and intellect. Evolutionary psychologists call it the Savannah theory of happiness. A study published in the British Journal of Psychology found a startling correlation. For the average person, more social interaction equals more happiness. But for highly intelligent people, the pattern flips. For those with high IQs, frequent social interaction actually lowers life satisfaction. Why? Because their minds are focused on long-term objectives and complex ideas rather than short-term socialization. Silence doesn't bore them, it feeds them. As Carl Jung once suggested, some people need noise to escape their thoughts. Others need silence to explore them. 4. Independence from social validation. People who love solitude tend to rely less on external validation. They don't chase attention. They don't feel the need to perform socially. They don't measure their worth through constant interaction. Psychological research on self-determination theory shows that people with strong internal motivation rely less on approval and more on internal alignment. This makes them appear reserved, mysterious, emotionally distant. But in reality, they are simply self-contained. 5. Home as psychological territory. Home isn't just a place. For solitude lovers, it's territory. Environmental psychology shows that familiar spaces reduce cortisol levels and increase feelings of safety and control. At home, there's no performance, no social masking, no unnecessary emotional labor. Control restores balance. Predictability restores peace. In a chaotic world, solitude feels sovereign. 6. The introversion myth. Not everyone who loves solitude is an introvert. Some are ambiverts, burned-out extroverts, deep thinkers exhausted by surface-level interaction. Modern psychology emphasizes that introversion is about energy processing, not social ability. Many solitude lovers can be charismatic, articulate, and socially skilled. They simply don't need constant interaction to feel alive. They choose solitude, not because they can't socialize, but because they don't need to. 7. When solitude turns into avoidance, the shadow side. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Solitude heals, but isolation corrodes. Clinical psychology warns that when solitude is driven by fear, shame, or avoidance, it stops being restorative. Warning signs include fear of all social interaction, emotional numbness, using solitude to hide from growth. Healthy solitude is chosen. Unhealthy isolation is defensive. The difference is intention. 8. Misunderstood by a loud world. Society rewards visibility. Solitude rejects it. As a result, solitude lovers are often labeled cold, arrogant, antisocial. But studies on emotional depth suggest that people who process internally often feel more intensely. They just express it privately. They connect deeply but selectively. Quality over quantity. 9. Solitude and great minds. Real-life examples. History quietly favors solitude. Isaac Newton developed calculus while isolated during the plague. Nikola Tesla worked alone for years, refining ideas others couldn't comprehend. Virginia Woolf famously argued that creativity requires a room of one's own. Henry David Thoreau retreated into solitude to understand society more clearly. These weren't lonely people. They were inward-focused minds. Solitude wasn't their weakness, it was their advantage. Solitude allowed thought without interference. And that leads to the final truth. 10. What solitude lovers actually need. They don't need fixing. They don't need forcing into crowds. They need respect for boundaries, meaningful conversation, space without guilt. Understanding them requires emotional intelligence, not pressure. In a world addicted to noise, choosing silence is not weakness, it's awareness. The psychology of solitude is not escape. It's about depth, control, and self-mastery. Some people build their identity through the crowd. Others build it in silence. And often, the quiet ones understand the world more deeply than anyone else.